We are here on the Falklands, but we didn't just wait. Well, we did kind of wake up one morning and decide to do it, but it was a long time ago and there was quite a lot that went into this. So, Les, you've been handling most of our logistics. You want to give us the backstory on how this trip came to be?
Sure. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Argentina invaded the Falklands, and little 12-year-old Les found out about it one day at school by doing really good on a history test and was told, go to the library and do a current events article for extra credit. And I did, and I picked up Newsweek magazine, and on the cover of the magazine was HMS Hermes with the title, The Empire Strikes Back.
Props to whoever at Newsweek picked that. Like,
Needless to
well
say,
done.
the hook was set. So I followed it as best I could on the news at the time. And then came a hurricane because I lived in the Florida Keys at that time. And the power went out, the TV went out, and on my dad's shortwave, the only thing we could get was the BBC telling us about the attacks on the hills around Stanley. So I couldn't find out what was going on in my island. I couldn't find out what was happening in Miami, but I knew exactly what was going on down here. And believe it later or not, when I got into the Marine Corps as a logistician, I had to study this campaign, the logistics of this campaign. It was like literally ordered to do so.
It's one thing to think about the combat and the tactics and the naval battle versus the land battle here, but really the logistics operation of the Falklands is mind-blowing. This is, we're how many, 8,000 miles from the UK, and they were able to ship a task force en route down here on like within 3 days. The first elements of the task force left, and they fought an amphibious assault ground invasion, 10,000 troops on the ground, 8,000 miles away from home base. It's staggeringly impressive operation.
Absolutely. And in recent years, since 2012, the British 30-year rule has come into effect. So a lot of guys can now talk about their experience. Books are plenty out there. You can literally get a book down to a cook on a ship. So there's a lot of information to find out. And the crux of all this is this all this information is accumulated over my life. The place names I knew. It was like coming here to walk the ground was finally going to be closure. This crazy guy sits here and tells me, hey, I went to Guadalcanal. That's really cool. I'm like, damn it, I'm right. I want to go to Guadalcanal. But I'm going to go to the Falklands. You want to come with me? And he said,
Sure, that sounds like fun. Why not?
and then-
Yari, you want to go to the Falklands?
Yeah, sure.
and that's how this adventure started.
So we spent about a year getting everything set for making the trip. The flights down are a little complicated and weird to get through the British government, through the Falkland Islands government service. We actually had really good luck, you did, arranging all of our lodging and our tour guides and transportation here on the islands through Penguin Travel.
Yeah, they have been incredibly helpful. When you're out there on the web searching, if you want to come here, one, don't just come spur of the moment. It requires a lot of pre-planning. But two, Penguin Travel was outstandingly helpful. I came to them with questions. A lot of them they had to think, who the hell is this guy asking this? And they finally put us in touch with our tour guide, Gary, who is actually a veteran of the conflict. And as soon as we told him what we wanted to do, he completely understood. Came back, had a long conversation with him. He actually altered my plans to say, hey, this will actually allow you to see more and do it in less time. So we followed what he said, and I have to say, everything the man has told us has been spot on. The helpfulness of the people here in the Falklands have been nothing but outstanding.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is like, they're really encouraging us to do it. Everybody's like really into it, which is unlike back home where everybody pretty much asks us, have we lost our effing minds?
We did ask Gary if a lot of tourists come down here to do the yomp, and he kind of went, no, they really don't.
Yeah.
Nobody does this. How did we actually get here?
Well, first of all, we contacted Penguin Travel, who told us the process we had to follow, which you have to work through the Falkland Islands government. And there's two ways to come down. One is what they call the air bridge, which is you go to RAF Bryce Norton in the UK and you get on an actual RAF aircraft or an RAF contracted aircraft and you fly down through Ascension Island. The other way is LATAM Airways offers a route that comes this way. Sometimes it seems to be inconsistent and a little bit longer journey. So we decided to take the air bridge route. You have to put in for approval. Once you get approval, they send you an approval and tell you when to show up at RAF Bryce Norton. When you get there, you have to go through a bunch of security, somewhat stricter than the airline, surprisingly.
In some ways, yeah.
And then you fly to Ascension Island, which is halfway here. You get off the plane while they refuel and reprovision it, and then you fly the rest of the way here, arriving at Mount Pleasant, which is an RAF base.
Total of about 16 hours of flight time, plus about 2 hours at Ascension Island, plus about 4 hours at Bryce Norton between when you have to get there and when the flight actually leaves. Plus, actually, arrival at Mount Pleasant was pretty quick.
Yeah,
there's customs and baggage and all, but that actually went pretty quickly.
Yeah, that went quickly. It's in one place, and it was they were more than efficient and very kind. And
oh, and then by the way, you need transit from Mount Pleasant into Stanley. It's easy to think that there's an airport in Stanley because there was a major component in the war. The airport in Stanley has been reverted back to its original short runway that is only for like local inter-island flights. And the airline, the air bridge, arrives through the post-war British Naval or British Air Force Base at Mount Pleasant, which is a solid hour's drive away from Stanley. So Penguin Travel did part of our arrangement was basically the taxi ride, the bus ride from the airbase back to Port Stanley on arrival.
And then once we got here, we stayed at the Lookout Lodge. Nice basic accommodations, gives you everything that you need, nothing that you don't.
Yep, there is no 10-story Marriott Holiday Inn on East Falkland.
Yeah,
there are a number of small hotels and lodges.
Lodges and then the bed and breakfast type of.
Hostel to lodge to small hotel is kind of your option set.
Yeah. But one of the things I think we can all agree on is since we've gotten here, the people have been nothing but the kindest people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're very cool.
Very cool, very pleasant to deal with. Surprisingly modern things here that you would not expect, especially if you get immersed in the world of all the books of the Falklands, because you almost expect that the world hasn't moved on since 1982. There is television down here. There is limited internet access.
Quite limited, but it is there.
It is there. Quite expensive.
Yes.
But even out here in the camp, we are at Port San Carlos, as far as away from Stanley you can be on East Falkland, and yet we're sitting in this very nice place that has TV.
Yeah, okay, but Port San Carlos sounds like, there's Port Stanley and there's Port San Carlos. They must both be cities. No. Port San Carlos is a port because someone at some point built a jetty out into the water, and you can land a small boat here. There are 4 houses at Port San Carlos, and one of them is like the guest house that we're sitting in right now. It's like 2 families out here. So, which is the case with pretty much all of the settlements. In fact, it's interesting talking to our guides. While the population of the Falklands is a bit larger than it was during the war, the rural population is actually smaller. So most of the settlements outside of Stanley have gone down in population since the war because essentially they've come up with more labor efficient ways to do the sheep farming that is the main business, really the only business outside of Port Stanley. So usually when you go visit battlefields, civilization has expanded over old battlefields. Here, that's not the case. What you get out in, as they call it, the camp, is basically what was here in '82 with the addition of some roads.
And it's amazing. Today, as we were walking out to a memorial to a helicopter shoot down, we came across what had been obviously an old Argentine fighting position. The guy had built it up with rocks and overhead cover, and it was still mostly intact here 42 years later.
Yeah, and there was a chunk of a law rocket right there too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was surprising how much has not changed that we've seen. As we drove out here, the guide was very nice enough to take us the route out, point out points of interest, and also show us, hey, this is the reverse of the route you're coming. So as a safety measure, we know exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And it was glad that he gave us that amount of care and attention to what we're doing. The people here have been super concerned for our safety. Like our landlady here is called ahead to our next destination about when to expect us. We've already met the family who will be staying with at Estancia.
Yep.
Apparently they're preparing quite a shindig for us.
Yeah,
Um,
which is awesome.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll do a follow up when we finish everything, and